Objection. Hallucination.
The legal industry has entered a period of profound structural transformation driven by generative AI. Everyone can feel it. But if you actually look at how attorneys are responding, you generally get three very different pictures. Some attorneys still treat AI as a speculative technology, and they practice today almost exactly as they did in 2022, the year ChatGPT was launched. Some use AI partially. They draft emails with it, maybe summarize a document, or do some research. They sometimes get correct answers, sometimes hallucinate law, and they often risk some of their professional duties, like confidentiality. And then there is a third group, law firms and legal tech companies investing millions to build their own internal AI systems or commercial legal AI products. Three completely different responses to the same technology, and they all have some reasonable grounds for their positions. So through this video, I want to look at some of these and try to understand what's actually happened in the last 4 years, where the legal profession is heading, and whether it's still worth studying law. We will cover 5 topics today. First, the data. What the actual adoption numbers show about AI in law after 4 years, and why you have to read those numbers carefully. Second, the potential. How much legal work AI could theoretically cover, and how far actual usage still is from the ceiling. Third, the money. What AI is doing to billing rates, hourly fees, and who is actually benefiting from the efficiency gains. Fourth, the rules. Specifically, some recent regulations and lawsuits that shows how rule makers and court respond to AI in law. And finally, fifth, where I think this realistically goes and what it means for your career. Let's start with statistics, and I want to start with honest caveat that I think matters a lot. Most of the surveys and reports you will see about AI adoption in the legal profession are produced by companies that also sell AI products to law firms. These are valuable organizations, and their data is worth reading, but in my opinion, they are not neutral observers, specifically when their surveys suggest that AI adoption is surging and that lawyers who don't adopt their products will be left behind. Take Clio's Legal Trend Report 2025 as an example. It suggests near universal adoption rates as high as 79%. However, the catch here is who they are surveying. As it is written here, the report primarily surveys their own customers who are already engaged with their cloud-based tech, which creates a bit of adoption echo chamber that may not reflect the broader and the more traditional legal market. But what I found very interesting is that even though the report promotes Clio's legal-specific AI, it also shows that use of legal-specific AI tools actually dropped 18% in 2025 compared to 2024. So while use of general AI tools like ChatGPT and Cloud increased, use of legal-specific tools declined. 8am's 2026 Legal Industry Report tells a similar story from a different angle. It says, based on their 2025 research, that 69% of legal professionals now using generative AI for work-related purposes. But if you read the underlying data, the most common use case is general research or drafting correspondence. That is basically emails. 58% of those AI users primarily using it to draft professional emails. That's a very different thing from AI reshaping the substance of legal work. Even though I admit that AI is transforming everyone's life, including attorneys, being in that 69% statistic because you use ChatGPT to clean up a sentence is not the same as AI having transformed the whole legal practice. Another interesting piece of information in this report is that use of legal-specific AI tools is actually 42%. While this figure is close to Clio's survey, there is a striking gap regarding the previous year's figures. Clio reports 2024 adoption at 79%, same as 2025. But on the other hand, 8am's article published on the ABA's own website puts 2024 personal AI use at just 31%. That alone should tell you something about how carefully these numbers need to be read. It makes you wonder which reality we are looking at. Even the ABA's official tech report from that year shows that only 30% of lawyers indicated their offices were using AI tools at all, and half of those users were simply using just ChatGPT. Then there is Wolters Kluwer's 2026 Future-Ready Lawyer Survey, which covers 810 legal professionals across the US, China, and 9 European countries. But regarding its methodology, it provides very little information other than this country's name. And it doesn't state whether the sampling was random or drawn from the Wolters Kluwer's own customer base. According to this survey, AI adoption is over 92%. It is the highest I saw. And again, I felt strong vendor influence, specifically when the survey shares quotes similar to evolve or become obsolete, rather than offering more transparency about its methodology. Now, another useful way to examine the role of AI in law is to ask not how much AI is already being used by lawyers, but how much legal work it could potentially cover. Because even after 4 years and dozens of model updates, the chronic problems haven't gone away. AI still hallucinates. It still struggles with facts and jurisdiction-specific nuance. It still produces inconsistent and sometimes unreliable responses depending on the task or how you phrase your prompt, and it can still put you and your client's rights, privileges, or confidences at risk. And tasks that make lawyering genuinely valuable, like being in a courtroom, reading a room, exercising strategic judgment, considering facts or law that your prompt simply doesn't trigger, or advising a client through the worst moment of their life, have remained stubbornly and fundamentally human. When I look into potential AI coverage of legal work, as always, different research gives very different numbers. For example, Goldman Sachs, which is not an AI vendor, estimates that 44% of current legal work tasks could be automated by AI in the US and Europe. On the other hand, Anthropic's Labor Market Impact of AI report, published very recently on March 5th, 2026, finds that almost 90% of legal tasks are principal things AI could assist with. But here is why. Anthropic's finding, I think, is very important. Their observed usage data shows AI currently assists only around 20% of those legal tasks in practice. This doesn't mean full automation. The report states that this measure is meant to quantify of those tasks that AIs could theoretically speed up. So the dominant pattern in real professional AI interaction is augmentation, where human and AI working together, and it's not a replacement. What this tells us is that there is a massive gap between what AI companies claim AI is capable of doing in legal work and what it actually does today. And that gap exists not only because of AI's own limitation, but also because of software integration challenges, professional ethics obligations, liability constraints, and the simple pace at which institutional change happens in law. Now, let's briefly talk about what AI is doing to the economics of legal work, because this is where the structural conflict becomes most visible. The Thomson Reuters 2026 State of the US Legal Market Report, which is produced jointly with Georgetown Law, makes it very clear. Law firms, specifically big law, are investing significantly in technology, and yet 90% of all legal dollars still flow through standard hourly billing arrangements, the same system that has dominated the profession since the 1950s. Here is the specific tension. If AI makes a task twice as fast, law firms have a choice. They can pass those savings to the client, which reduces their revenue, or they can raise their hourly rate, argue that AI-enhanced work is more valuable, which is mostly what we see from the firms investing heavily in AI. By the way, according to the same report, the average firm raised its rates by 7.3% in 2025, while profits rose 13% in the same period. Now, to be fair, as you can see in these graphics, billing rates and revenue naturally grow every year. Historically, law firms have maintained a pricing advantage above inflation, so annual growth in rates and revenue is the norm regardless of the technology being used. Even though AI increases efficiency and profitability, it wouldn't be accurate to attribute all these increases to AI alone. Now, as I mentioned earlier, how much AI affects lawyer isn't only about AI's capabilities, but there are also other factors, and one of the most significant right now is the regulatory environment, which is evolving very fast. Some recent developments can have real and immediate consequences for practicing lawyers. In July 2024, the American Bar Association issued a formal opinion, one of the first formal guidance documents on the use of generative AI by lawyers. As the name suggests, it is an opinion, not a rule. In general, it maps AI use onto 6 existing model rules: competence, confidentiality, communication, candor, supervision, and fees. More recently, the ABS 2026 mid-year meeting passed a resolution that further reinforced the role of technology competence in professional practice, which builds on a foundation that already exists. It is worth noting that technological competence is not a new obligation. The ABA amended Comment 8 of Rule 101 back in 2012 to require technological competence. What is changing is how seriously and how specifically lawyers are now expected to understand generative AI. While several states are racing to implement AI-specific regulations, I want to focus on the two jurisdictions, California and New York, where I am admitted to or passed the bar. California is leading one of the most ambitious statutory efforts. Senate Bill 574, introduced in January 2026, passed the California Senate on January 30th and is now pending in the Assembly. If it becomes law, it would require California attorneys to prohibit entering confidential or personally identifying information into any public AI system and verify the accuracy of all AI-generated material and correct any hallucinations and to ensure AI tools don't produce biased or harmful content. It would also prohibit arbitrators from delegating any decision-making to AI. Meanwhile, New York Senate Bill 7263 goes even further and in a different direction. Rather than regulating how attorneys use AI, it targets the unauthorized practice of a licensed profession by AI chatbots. In other words, if an AI chatbot gives someone what amounts to a legal advice, the company behind it could be held liable. This affects both attorneys and the general public. Another development with very practical impact came from a federal court in February of this year. In United States versus Heppner, the Southern District of New York issued a ruling holding that documents a defendant generated using a public AI chatbot were not protected by attorney-client privilege or the work product doctrine. Critically, this turned on the fact that the defendant used the tool on his own initiative, without attorney direction, on a public platform whose privacy policy disclaimed confidentiality. The court itself suggested the outcome might have been different had the counsel directed the use, which could have arguably established the AI tool as the lawyer's agent. There are important lessons from this case for both lawyers and the public, because along with several AI copyright cases, it has made it clear that AI chat conversations can be discoverable. So where does this go? Based on the regulations and cases we have seen so far, the direction of travel is clear. More regulations and court decisions are coming. The question is no longer whether AI will be regulated in the legal profession. It is how quickly and how strictly. Every report and survey I look at gives a different perspective. My personal observation is closest to what Anthropic's research paper found. There is a limited evidence that AI has materially affected employment to date. That same research also tells us that while almost 90% of legal tasks are in principle things AI could assist with, the actual observed usage covers only around 20% of those tasks so far. This figure is significant and shouldn't be overlooked, but it also doesn't mean the profession has no future. AI can improve the efficiency of a case, but it cannot uphold the integrity of the system. That responsibility remains, as it has for centuries, a fundamentally human endeavor. That said, the base of the pyramid is narrowing. I believe big law firms and lawyers who can adapt will benefit most, while newcomers will not find the same profession their predecessors did. I have practiced law in 2 countries, and I am still a young lawyer experiencing this transformation with both excitement and anxiety. I am going to keep making videos about what's actually happening in this profession as accurately as I can. If you found this video useful, please hit like and subscribe. See you in the next one.